Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. So it's all about Ubuntu MATE on the Raspberry Pi this evening. Thank you all for joining again. It's lovely to see you all in chat. We've been having a chat in the chat. In fact, let's bring up the chat. Let's do that. Here we go. So how is everyone? Everyone well? I've had a few days off work. So I've been working on some stuff. So this evening we're going to take a look at the beta images for Ubuntu MATE 2004 for the Raspberry Pi that have been refreshed and updated to work on the Pi 2, 3 and 4. You really want the Pi 4. So that's what we'll be doing. We're going to take a quick look at what the initial setup wizard looks like. Just go through that, so if anyone's never seen that before, they know what to expect. And then I've got an 8 gig model pre-installed and set up, and we'll go through a few performance demos to sort of show off Ubuntu MATE flexing its muscle on the Pi. So looking in chat, hello Glenn, hello Marius, welcome back Marius. As I always say, German language viewers, head to Nerd Zoom Media. Marius has got you covered for all your Linuxy and tech news over there. Hello again Yannick, it's good to see you as always. Hello Henrik. Hello Luke, nice to see you. I used to work with you, those were the days, eh? Hello, good evening Mark. Hello Kai, oh hi Kai, how you doing? Blue Freaker and Big Pod, welcome back. These streams are getting a bit professional. Yeah, I know, right? You should see the snap of OBS Studio, man. I am an expert at OBS now. And I do have videos coming for those of you that have asked about how I do some of this fancy bananas stuff. We're getting there. Right then, hello Leaf and It Swells, hello, welcome back. Right then, what we're going to do first of all, I know what we'll do. First of all, we'll just switch to this view. So, here's the gear we've got laid out this evening. We'll get to this. We've got a Pi 4 with 4 gig in here, and a Pi 4 with 8 gig in here. I'll get to what these cases are a bit later. Here's my cables and stuff, but the first thing we'll do is I thought I'd just show a couple of ways that you can put these images once you download them. I'll be sharing ways to download them from a bit later. I should be showing quickly how you put the images on a memory card. So I've got my SD card and card reader writer here. So I'll just put that in the back here, and we'll flip to the, gosh, which one of these views is it? It's this one, he says, pushing the button. There we go. Right then, there we go. Keep the chat on the screen. Right then, so there's two ways to do this if you're on Linux. The first is GNOME disks. There's an advantage to using GNOME disks for this. So you pick up your drive. There's my 64 gig drive. I'll just unmount what it's mounted there. You can do restore disk image, and if I pick up these images, here they are. The advantage of using GNOME disks is you can use the XZ compressed image without having to uncompress it first. So you can choose either the ARMHF, which is the 32-bit version, or ARM64, which is 64-bit version. These days, if you're running on anything on a Pi with 2 gigs of RAM or more, go with the 2 gig model in my opinion. So that's what you would do. He says on the wrong screen again. Everyone knows I do that every time. Then you hit start restoring. It'll ask you for your password and off it goes. So that's how you can do it with GNOME disks if you're on Linux. And then if you're on Linux, Mac or Windows, Mac has now got this. You can go to choose OS, go down here, select custom, choose the image that you want, but this one you have, oh, it does say it'll take the compressed images as well. Pretty sure it didn't do this the other day when I last looked, but there we go. That will take the compressed images too, apparently. So you choose the image that you want, and then you choose your SD card media, hit right, and off it goes. So that's a couple of ways that you can you can do that in order to get the written image on the disks. So just looking in chat here. Hello Russell, good evening. Hello Cassius, is that how I say that? Hey, evening Jill, welcome back. Glad to have you back in the stream again. Yes, this SD card organizer is pretty great. I know quite often when I'm doing random stuff, people say, "Ooh, what earbuds are you using?" or, you know, random pick a thing. I've tried to put as much of the stuff that I'm using in the links below, so if you see anything you think, "Oh, that's nifty." Anyway, this is a 36 slot card holder, so you can get SD cards, compact flash, micro SDs in there. It's pretty cool. I have 2 of those because it's a really convenient way to store all your stuff. So that's that done. That's how you get it on the thing. So what we're going to do first of all is this Raspberry Pi here is this is a Pi 4 in a Argon Neo case. If you've not seen one of these before, they're pretty cool. I like them because you can the whole thing's metal, and this is a big heat sink, but you can just pull this off and you can get access to all of the I/O, and even has a slot for holding a Pi camera. So it's a nice way to sort of put it in a case but keep it passively cooled. You can put what's the word, fan hats on these GPIOs here. I'm waiting for some fan hats to arrive, which I think would help. But that's the case I'm going to use in this one. I finally got around to doing this because I kept burning myself on the damn things. So, and then we've just got an SD card in the bottom there. And that is a fresh image that's never been used before. So we'll get this fired up. Let's have a look now. Let's go over here. Big no signal. Do you like that? Right, let's just get all this plugged in. I should probably have done that plugging in whilst we were on the other one. Right then, and then add power, clonk. And this should boot up. Now, it's interesting. I was testing earlier, and there's a problem that I've got documented in the known issues, and I figured out what the problem was earlier. So there'll be a beta 2 image before too long, which fixes some of that. So let's have a look. Antex designs. Don't drink on Linux. Oh, I'm not sure I agree with that sentiment. When I do these live streams and I'm officially off duty of everything, all the household stuff is done, and I'm here doing my thing, having fun with all of you lovely people. Yeah, so it reminds me of the Fedora image writer. Which does, the Raspberry Pi writer or the GNOME disks? Because if it's GNOME disks, it's probably the same thing. Right then, so we've just booted off this image for the first time, and you get presented with this. So this is a little sort of first boot wizard. Now, there is a big bug in this version, which is there is no Wi-Fi at all in this first boot. In fact, there's probably quite a few things that don't work at this stage, but that's fine because I know how to fix it, and we'll get that fixed in a few days. But just so you're aware, if you decide to go and download these images later, be aware that there is no Wi-Fi, so you'll either need... Oh, you know what I need? Hang on, let's just switch here. I've forgotten the rather important business of I need my second keyboard, which is the one that is connected to the Pi and the mouse that goes with it. So I've got a little wireless dongle in the keyboard there. So let's bring up, there we go. So we'll go with English, but you can obviously choose the language that you prefer. And this first boot, it does take a little while. There's a few things going on. This is a UK keyboard as opposed to a US keyboard, so we just make sure that all of the important characters work properly. If you've ever bought, you know, Ubuntu pre-installed on a laptop, you'll be familiar with this, and it also looks a lot like, you know, part of, you know, a traditional Windows install. So, Lothar asks, slightly unrelated, is it possible to get one of those Ubuntu shirts? These ones, no, because this is a real old one. This isn't even the right orange anymore. This is the old EasyJet orange. And I was given these when I was a booth babe at MWC in 2017, which Marius, who's in the chat, will remember because he was at the event covering it, doing interviews with various people. So this is actually an ARM-HF image, so we'll give it that name. The password is just desktopify, which is what I've been using recently for test images. So there we go through that process there. So now this will do a few things like configuring the languages, keyboard layouts. It'll do the last piece of initial RAM disk initialization, which is what I now realize is the broken bit that I will fix. I've actually haven't updated the device tree, or rather I've updated the device tree but not the kernel that's in the boot partition, so frankly it's amazing this much works. So L says, sorry for the ignorance, I haven't used Linux for some time. Does Ubuntu MATE support Google Drive yet? Well, Ubuntu MATE, or rather Linux does. There's a project called InSync, which is a third-party Google Drive sync client, which I've used for years. I think it did used to cost about $15. I can't remember when I bought my license, some time ago. Don't know if that works on ARM, but it certainly works on, Intel desktop just fine. It's pretty great. Luke WH is going to sell something. You have Luke WH says he's got one of these in a plastic bag. He's going to sell it on eBay. So there you go. Go hunting on eBay for Ubuntu shirt before long. Rakanx, am I pronouncing that correctly? Welcome to the stream. Hello, Trooper. Yes, so ARM-HF is the 32-bit image, and I just put this on just so I could test it. I wanted to show both. The other device we're going to run has got the 64-bit image on there. Hello, Enrico. Glad you could join us from Canada. Stefan Morris says that they've been using InSync for G Drive and OneDrive. Oh, it supports more than Google Drive now. Wow, incredible. Well, that was exciting. I don't quite know what happened there, but apparently OBS chewed itself into pieces. So, I'll just get confirmation that everyone can see me. It looks like everything's working again. Sorry about that. I do apologise. Thank you for letting me know. Right. Let's see now. Where were we? We were installing, and I was probably saying something about the install. So let's go and look at that. And there we go. Right then. What fun. Not even using the mesh network either, using Hardline, good old-fashioned Hardline. So that did the first sort of install and setup. We'll now log in, and this is it hasn't rebooted. It's just completed the setup. Goes to that login screen. Right, and this will be the first desktop. And as I said, there won't be any at this point. There's no 3D acceleration. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no Bluetooth. There's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't work. Thank you, Yannick. Very kind. Sarcasm much. I'll use it to buy better internet or something. You funny man. Right, okay. So I'll just tuck that away a little bit. And we'll just reboot the Pi. So I'm rather impressed at what you can actually do with a system that is failing a stream, though. It's remarkable that the stream stays up. So sorry if I've missed some chat there. I'm just looking at the catch up here. Right. Okay, well, at least we were able to recover from that. So this boot, all the hardware should work now. So we should have working Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and 3D acceleration. So this is using a kernel that's got V3D acceleration enabled by default. So we're just doing the first boot on this ARM-HF system. And we'll know that things are working properly because we'll point out a couple of things in the desktop. And also this second boot takes a little bit longer than like boots 3, 4, 5, 6 and onwards, because there's some final like OS initialization that needs to happen. But yeah, if I just tuck the chat away, you can see here's the Bluetooth icon that was missing before, and here's wireless networks. And here is the welcome screen with Raspberry Pi related information. So there we go, that's it. We're not going to spend too much time in here, just wanted to go through that setup process. Sorry you missed some of it, but anyone that's installed Ubuntu before will be familiar with how that works. So let's just shut this one down and then we'll get the other one out and then we'll have some fun. Symbolic beer that I did not get to buy you at Talk Live. Yannick, you are very kind. Thank you very much. Cheers. And also, when are we going to see each other? I mean, there's no Talk Live, there's no All Camp. When, I mean, I can't imagine it, but sometime next year, 2021. Let's make it a good one, shall we? Right then. Oh, that was Marius. Sorry, Marius. That was Marius. Sorry. Yes, and Marius. Although yeah, Talk is where I usually see you. Right. So that's done. Let's just go to the overhead cam. Marius, you may have noticed we put out the. Oh, hello. Oh dear, look at this. You can see what's happening now. Or you can't. I can. The OBS has had to restart and it's now confused about what all the cameras are. Gosh, okay, let's just... Okay, so this one works. That one's good. Let's just see. That one's fine. And the one that does the Raspberry Pi is fine, but the overhead camera's not working. So, okay, we'll just have to go with this. So I'm just unplugging the Neo case. It's a shame, I was going to show you this other case, but I've now got the Argon case here. I'll tell you what, let's oh no, we won't bother fixing it. Right then, so this one's pre-installed and I've done some setup so I can show you a few bits and we can run through some tests. So let's just get all of this plugged in. So I've plugged the Argon case in, and if I just switch to the device camera, nothing's coming on, and that's because it's actually got a power switch on the back. So I'm pressing the power switch now and get a little bit of fan noise as it just starts up, and then the fan will die down. So this is an installed system. This is a Raspberry Pi 4 with 8 gigs of RAM running a 64-bit version of Ubuntu MATE 2004. So we've gone through that whole setup, and I've even installed a few bits and pieces. Yeah, so Blue Freaker says there may not even be some events in 2021. Yeah, it's possible, right? Right. Yes, Blue Freaker. So that's the first time OBS has actually tripped itself up whilst I've been doing a live stream. I have to say, I'm not going to say a bad word about OBS Studio. It is by far my favourite bit of software ever these days. I think it's terrific. So this is just logging in to this pre-install, and I'll point out a few things that I've set up. I'm just going to check the overhead camera. No, that's definitely not working. Okay, right then, so what have I set up here? Well, the first thing I have done is, we're just going to close this for the moment. I've added Firefox and Chromium to the taskbar. Here we have a temperature reading, so the CPU, that's the CPU temperature. Here we have some performance metrics. This is CPU utilization, the blue. The green graph here is RAM, and the red one is load. So, you know, as we come out of a boot, relatively load. And then we have the CPU frequency scaling here. The important thing to note is you'll only see that go as high as 1.5 gigahertz. So we're running at stock clocks on the GPU, stock voltages, stock CPU clocks. So everything I'm about to show you is all stock. One thing we have done is we've disabled the compositor in Ubuntu MATE. And the reason I've done that is I've noticed that introduced quite some latency when you do things like watch streaming video. So that's off by default because it improves streaming video playback quite considerably. So Enrico says, was wondering if this can be booted from USB. So the images that I'm going to point you at in a little bit, no, they will only boot off SD card, working on USB booting. So in a subsequent beta release, hopefully we'll crack that. So not at the moment. Yeah, so I'm using Powerline at the moment, Luke, to get from here to the internet, which is downstairs. Right then, so let's start with this. So let's just prove that all the OpenGL stuff is hooked up. So let's just, hopefully everyone can see that just fine now. So if we just do glx info and grep for OpenGL, there we go. You can see here that the Broadcom chip is active. It's not LLVM pipe, and Mesa is all glued up there. So we're using the hardware for that. So if I'll just tuck this over here. If I run glmark, you can see the and the other thing is I've also hooked up my proper capture card again. I was testing some cheap and cheerful cards, but they didn't work as well. So I'll just tuck the chat away so you can see there. So that's the frames per second. So this is running, it runs somewhere around 250, 260 frames per second for each of these tests, which is reasonable. If you compare that with my 2080 Ti and my machine I'm streaming from, that does upwards of 3000 frames per second. And the interesting thing here is the frame time. These frame times are around 4 milliseconds, and the 2080 Ti is around 0.3 milliseconds. So, but, you know, not too shabby. Seems to work quite well. And the important thing to notice here is, whilst it's rendering all of this, looking at the CPU utilization, which is nice and low because it's doing all of this on the SoC, on the GPU, not on the processing cores. So as we look here, you can see that, you know, the cores are just bouncing around as they do, as, you know, desktop stuff happens. So that's all working very nicely indeed. So I'll just kill that off there. It takes ages to run to completion. This is something you can all do for yourselves after the fact. So let's just get rid of this now. So I'll just catch up with the chat if I can. Everyone is sharing your horror stories about networks. Is it 2020 and networks are still rubbish? Is that what we're concluding here? HTOP. Okay. I tell you what. Let's do. That's the wrong password. So let's grab HTOP. and we'll run glmark again. So there you go, you can now see htop alongside glmark running. So it obviously puts some load on the CPU because there is something for it to do whilst these things are going on. You know, it's not entirely idle, but as you can see, it's not what it used to be like, where it would, you know, peg all of the CPU's cores whilst it was rendering. Hopefully that gives you an idea. You know, load is 1, as we can see on the graph and in htop. So, you know, decent. So let's move on. Let's take a look at some browser related stuff. Now, I had to preset this up because in my last video, or one of my earlier videos, I included a silent clip from another YouTube channel for about 7 seconds, and they monetized my whole video for the 7-second clip that accidentally appeared in that. So if you ever do anything on YouTube, make sure you don't put other people's stuff in your videos accidentally. I don't know if it's possible to stream with an Xbox One. I mean, you could via, you know, capture cards and stuff like that. That would work just fine. Yes, Troopers, right, 2020 should be taken out the book back and put out of its misery for sure, yeah. So Joey says they were listening to a podcast, and yeah, yes, that would be our podcast. Yeah, it's all about BashTop. Yeah, you're dead right, it's great. Okay, so let's move on. So let's bring up Firefox. Now, there's an important thing to point out about Firefox. So in earlier streams, I did some work to enable the OpenGL hardware renderer in Firefox by default. I have stepped back from that, and that's based on feedback from everyone that's been watching these videos. Thank you for that, by the way, and also based on the feedback, some testing of my own. So you will notice that compositing is basic rather than set to OpenGL. It's very simple. The feedback that I got, and certainly the testing that I did, confirms video playback is far smoother when you use the basic compositing than if you enable the OpenGL stuff. Now, if you've overclocked your Raspberry Pi, you know, like well up like 2 gigahertz, it doesn't matter which of these compositors you've got enabled. It looks great either way. But if you're running at stock clocks and you turn on the OpenGL, it just introduces some stutter. The stats for nerds in YouTube will tell you it's all fine and no frames are being dropped, but you can see it's visually very choppy. So we're not turning that on anymore. That was a failed experiment, but thank you for everyone who commented in the videos before. Whilst we're talking about comments and things, if you're new here, say hello in chat. Do introduce yourselves. We're a friendly crowd. It's nice to know who's here. If you have been here before and you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you're getting value from the video, how about a sub? And if you don't like the video, then hit the thumbs down arrow twice. That'll be good. Right. Let's have a look. So I've got a playlist set up here. I'm just arranging this window so hopefully you can see what's going on and the chat as well. So we have some Blender movies here. We'll start with this one. You won't hear the audio. I'm not piping the audio through. Hello, Simon, Pedro. Oh, Pedro, hello. Welcome back, you. And Justin, Anderson, and Lauren, and wow, George, brilliant. Thank you all. Thanks for the sub. C. Jones, wherever you were in that big long list of people. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Always good. I try to keep up. Right then, so we have a video here from the Blender Studio. What resolution is this? This is running at 1080p, albeit in this narrow window here. We just bring up the stats for nerds. So currently 0 dropped frames. Check out the resolution of this clip. 2048 by 858. So if we just maximize this up. Hey Blue Freaker, thanks for the sub. I do like these alerts, they're a lot of fun. So let's just wait for that to go, and then we'll put this full screen. So this is full screen streaming from YouTube, and we do drop frames when we go full screen periodically. Thank you all for the subs, everyone. That's brilliant. But I think this is pretty decent. I mean, what do you think? This is 1080p, well, higher than 1080p technically. So, looks good to me. It's 24 frames per second, yeah. Yes, VA API and other things. I mean, there's a few things being worked on. So let's just, so that's that in Firefox. I think that is pretty decent. So I'm very happy with the way that has worked out. And if we then go over here, we can take a look at a WebGL demo. So this is the aquarium, which you've probably all seen before. It'll just take a few moments to load all of the textures. So Pedro's been here just lurking apparently. Hey Henrik, welcome from Sweden. So here we're running the aquarium demo. That's running at 10 frames per second, which is, you know, reasonable if you look at the CPU utilization. And now remind ourselves that also in this browser tab we still have the movie running. So we've got 1080p video and WebGL running at the same time here. So now I saw a question. So Jorg asks, do I have a solution to switch audio? Yeah, it's in the documentation, in the links that I will share a bit later. There's a simple one-liner you can do to switch the audio between devices. But if we just bring up the sound mixer. So as you can see, although the compositor's not running, this is all, you know, working quite nicely. Here's the audio options, and you can switch here between regular, stereo, and multi-channel, or off altogether. You get two outputs because on the Pi there's two HDMIs. Right, so that's Firefox. I'm pretty happy with that. But what I found interesting was if you do the video, what happens to, well, let's do this. There we go. So we've now got the aquarium running and the video running at the same time, side by side. Now that pushes things on the CPU front, but remember this is stock clocks and it is coping. Okay, right then, what we'll do then is we will now do a similar thing, except we'll do it with Chromium. And the reason why this was interesting, yeah, these recent Blender videos are pretty fantastic. So we'll bring up the aquarium, and what's interesting here is maybe I should have shown another comparison, but Chromium runs about twice as fast with WebGL than Firefox does on the Raspberry Pi 4. So if I'd have shown you just this running on its own on Firefox, it runs at about 9-10 frames per second in Firefox, and then here you can see it runs 16, 17, 18, something like that, for the same configuration. So there's that, and then we can go over here. Should we do, yeah, we'll do the same video. I suppose that's fair, isn't it? So here's the same video, and let's just make sure we've got this at the same resolution. We do, and here's that running too. Let's just, so you can see this is obviously using the CPU for the video, what the GL is obviously got on the GPU, but all things considered, pretty tidy. This is the Pi 4. How do I cool it? So I'm using, if you go to the description of this video, there's a link to two cases, the Argon Neo and the Argon 1. This Raspberry Pi that you're watching right now, which is running at 48 degrees C, is in the Argon 1, which does have an active fan, but I've actually got that turned off at the moment, so it's just using the passive cooling from that case. They're both metal cases. They both come with silicon adhesive to connect the SOC and RAM to a large heat spreader, which is basically the sort of the base of the case, and it's in it. They're huge, you know. I mean, if I bring this one up, this is all. Here we go. This is going to be fun. There we go. That's all metal, and that's a big metal heat spreader that's in touch with the SoC. And you can add an active fan to this one, which I haven't done yet. But you can see, you know, it's doing a bit of work there. We've got the video playing still, and over here, also the fish is still swimming in circles. CPU's probably, what, 75–80% loaded. So there it is. That was mostly what I wanted to show you all. So you've kind of seen it now. Performance is decent, stock clocks, and if you overclock it, you can run these. You can run the GPU on these up from 500 megahertz to 750, and you can push the CPUs from 1.5 gigahertz to 2.1 gigahertz. You have to overvolt slightly for that, and you do absolutely need active cooling if you go that hard, but it makes quite the difference. So there it is. That's Ubuntu Mate with the Pi 4. So all that remains, if we just pause these videos here, is where do you get these things from? Let's just go back a page. That will stop that whizzing around. Well, it's quite simple. If you go to ubuntumate.org/download, you will find there's two sections here for the 32-bit version for the Raspberry Pi and the 64-bit version. And if you choose 2004 LTS, you've got 3 ways to download, and you can get the 32-bit version from there. And if we go back, you can get the 64-bit version from here. And they're available to download right now. So fill your boots, they're beta ones. And what I'll do is, let's switch to this screen. Let's do this. I've prepared some documentation. So let's just, oh, hang on, I didn't mean to do that, did I? There we go. That's the problem with not actually thinking about what you're going to do ahead of time. So let's push up these docs as well whilst we're at it. Right then, that will deploy the new site. So in a matter of moments, the new site will be up, and the index page will say that Raspberry Pi is supported, and the Raspberry Pi page on the site itself will now include, oh, I've clicked in the wrong place, that was bad. So when you're on the home page here momentarily, in a few minutes or so, This will update to say that the Pi 4 is updated, and when you go to this page, the Raspberry Pi page, this will have a whole bunch of information about the new version of the images and what's new, what's working, what's not working, what's in progress. So that hopefully should be enough for everyone to go off, get started, and let me know how you get on. If you find issues, do report back. So let's have a look. We've got some. Let's have a look in chat. Let's go here. Right. Firefox. So the only thing that's accelerated in the browsers right now is anything OpenGL related. So WebGL, you know, WebGL games, demos, that sort of thing, all accelerated. Video playback in both the browsers currently relies on the CPU, but there are patches in progress. There's patches for Chromium. They're very difficult to get upstreamed, and there's work happening in Firefox as well. So in time, video playback should improve, but as you can see, sheer horsepower of the Pi 4 means that that's not really an issue, albeit, you know, they get warm, you know, so you do need to passively at least have a decent passive heatsink on them. So no, I can't see that. Blue Freaker wonders if they're going to make SO DIMM memory slot. No, that's an SoC. It's not how it works. I saw somebody ask a question. I'll just have a look in the backlog. Yannick asked, how well is GPIO supported in Ubuntu MATE? All of the packages that you'd expect to find are in the archive. So GPIO 0 and wiring Pi and all of that stuff are there, plus some of the hat modules for common hats and what have you. So pretty well supported. And the original cameras are all working, and the new high quality camera is nearly there. That will be landing very soon. In fact, I'll need to get mine out and test it. I don't want to say it's working just yet, but if it's not working now, it's going to be in the next couple of weeks. It might even be working in this version that I have running here, but I'll need to test to be sure. So Trooper says, can the Pi do more than 2 concurrent Chromium tabs? Yes, quite comfortably. You know, on the 4 and 8 gig versions, it can do many tabs. You know, you don't want to go crazy, just like you wouldn't want to go crazy on an actual computer with 4 or 8 gigs of RAM, but you know, enough to be perfectly usable. John asks, can we adjust the screen resolution? I think the answer to that question is yes. So let's go into displays. Here we go. This is the current range of resolutions that are available. Now you're probably wondering, well, where is the 4K? That's because I simply haven't enabled the 4K option in the firmware configuration, but you can enable 4K 60 if you want to. So let's step down. God, let's see if this works. No, I'm not gonna click on things and like, oh no, go on, let's find out. Let's find out how bad this breaks things. Apply. Oh, there we go. That was fine. So there we go. I've just changed it to 720p, and now we'll go back up to 1080. And I suppose the thing that's worth pointing out here is, unlike earlier versions, it's actually picking up the correct display information. So that's how my capture card appears to the system. So yeah, you can change resolutions just fine. Have I tried VNC? I haven't. I don't use VNC. I use X2Go if I'm going to do anything like that. That works just fine. Does the 7-inch touchscreen work? I've not tried that on Ubuntu, but I intend to. I have one just over there, but I haven't actually got round to trying that out yet. Goodness, let's have a look. USB boot. Paul Richards asked about USB boot. That's work in progress. I haven't quite got there now, but I will. That's the next thing on my list, is to try and get USB boot going. But right now, just boots off SD card. Justin Lamp asks about ZFS. In this version, ARM64 version, ZFS is in the kernel, but only on the 64-bit version. Yeah, you need to hack it. I want to make it so you don't have to hack the USB booting. What kind of speeds are we getting? I don't know what that question was about. Something about 4K. Goodness, let's have a look. Would one have to use xrandr? No. Blue Freaker, you go into the config.txt file for the firmware configuration and you enable 4K in there. There's an option to say that you want to turn on 4K, and if you do that, then it will show up in the desktop. Oh, Polyrun, hello, how you doing there? Will Ubuntu or Ubuntu MATE for RPi switch to snaps as default? Default for what? Not sure I understand the question. I mean, we have some snaps. The Ubuntu MATE welcome is a snap, for example. Can it run Crisis? Yo, so funny. No. In fact, I did try SuperTux Cart and it almost ran, and then there's clearly SuperTux must be using features of a newer version of OpenGL, and only the wheels on the carts were rendered, but nothing else. But up until that point, I'm sure it can run Doom. Everything can run Doom. No, we don't use DKMS for ZFS in Ubuntu. It's compiled into the kernel. It's X2. I'll show you. So somebody's asking about X2Go. X2Go is a remote terminal type solution. It's spelt like that. And the project is here, X2Go. So you'll find all the packages in the archive. Hi, Bill. Welcome. So Justin says yes. So Kate's and LexD, they all work just fine, by the way. How is progress with Wayland on Mate? Slow. The basic bits and pieces. Well, I say the basic. The panel and the session stuff is Wayland capable, but just about everything else needs porting still. There's a load of work to go on there. Look at it. What are you talking about? Look at what? Art State Digital. Hello there. Welcome to the stream. Now, that was really all I wanted to show off this evening. Unless there are any other questions, I think we're about done for now. Regarding snaps, I was referring to if it will be harder to push to offer apps as snaps for it. No, I still don't follow. Any? So Paolo asks, do we have any plans to put RPi update in the Ubuntu Pi version? No, for the simple reason that the kernel, the Raspberry Pi specific kernel, and the firmware are revved frequently, and so you don't need to use RPi update. You'll get new updates every 3 weeks is approximately every time there's a kernel update. So every 3 weeks, new stuff. No need for RPi update. Yes. Let's go up here. 172 people watching right now. It's astonishing. Thank you all for coming. For those of you that are new here and haven't said hello, please do say hello. It's always lovely to see the new names and faces in the stream. And if you've enjoyed this or got some value from it, please consider giving it a thumbs up or a subscribe. And if you didn't like it, then click the thumbs down twice. So with that, I think we'll call it an evening. I'll say thank you all very much for coming. Please do go to the ubuntumate.org website and download your copy of the Beta 1 images, and let me know in the comments how you got on, what was good, what was bad, what didn't work, what surprised you, and I'll see what we can get fixed. My plan is to try and get a final version out in the next couple of weeks or so to coincide with 2004.1. So, thank you all very much for coming. It's genuinely surprising to see so many of you in here. And do as that just said. Do the subscribe thing. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you in the next one.